Hello, I am so excited that Master Your Money is coming up. It's coming up May 16th through 18th in Atlanta, Georgia. And listen, I've been doing this event for over 6 years now. I created this event because I wanted to change the money conversation on the planet and because I was tired of seeing small business owners and entrepreneurs really struggle around the money piece in their business. And I could talk about this all day long, but I'm lucky to have here Stephen Walker. He is an amazing business owner. And I would love him to tell you about his experience about Master Your Money, why he came, and give you a sense of what he got from it. So Stephen, just before we get started here, I think it'd be interesting for people to know what you do quickly before we get into Master Your Money. So will you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Well, that changed after I went to Master Your Money. So when I started, I was a psychologist in private practice with a PhD and working with an emphasis in sports and performance psychology. So I had the athletes I worked with range from two-time Olympians to wannabes. And the two-time Olympian was a wannabe when we started. And I've got a little subtext story about that when you and I actually talked, but that was a big thing in that I loved my work, but Donna and I had both come off of a cancer treatment, chemo and surgeries and a bunch of other stuff. Wasn't fun. And we were contemplating retiring. Now, I know I look like I'm 25, but that's not the case. And so we went to Master Your Money because we had a 3-day time frame, and we flew from Denver to Atlanta. And our goal was to get a plan together. What are we going to do? Okay, are we going to downsize? Are we going to move? Are we going to relocate? But gee, I like my job. More questions than there were answers. And one of the things that really came through just at the end of day one, where we were doing money story, and both of us realized what our money stories were.
Yeah.
And that was part of the problem. That was one of the concerns that we had. But then beyond that, I'm talking with everybody in the room and I'm realizing, everybody in here is an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I go, wow, and because I didn't come with that being my primary intention. And when we started focusing on what it is that you were doing with some of these other people that were involved in the Money Club and now it's Rise, but there was a pretty significant group of people that were on it. They were doing some good stuff. So that's what brought us there.
Yeah.
And then things turned.
Yeah. And talk about that. What was the realization when you were there?
Well, that I like my work and I didn't want to stop. And, but healthcare was not a good model. It was not a good payment model. Insurance was just, it was just the pits trying to deal with any of that. And so when we sat down, we had a brief conversation with you, and you gave us an idea for a thing that we could do. And that meant the transfer from a private practice medical model to a coaching practice focused on wellness, and that turned things instantly. So rather than dealing with, collecting from an insurance carrier, I was collecting money on the first of the month for all the coaching sessions I was going to do the rest of that month with that individual. And then we just created a plan for how we were going to modify that. And just in the first year, we generated $30,000 more than we had the previous year and had a lot fewer headaches. There were a lot of lessons to be learned about how to make that transition, but just not dealing with insurance was huge.
And I love that. And so for those of you that are thinking about this, on day 2 of Master Your Money, this is what I really go into. How do you create an offer? How do you create a revenue stream? How do you price your revenue streams? And what do you price your revenue streams at? And this is really what started for Stephen and Donna, this possibility, this like new opening of, oh, wait a minute, I could do this business differently. I don't have to retire. Both of them, were in a place where, Stephen and Donna are married, just so you know who Donna is, and Donna helps to support Stephen in his business. And what was so interesting is that they were in a place where the passion was still there, and they still wanted to do it. It was just like, how do we figure this out without getting exhausted, right? Like, how do we actually shift the model without continuing to wear ourselves out? And we really go over, day 1, we talk about money stories and like what's holding you back. And then day 2, we really get into the nuts and bolts of how do you put the business together so that it generates money and it's less exhausting. And I saw, it's so funny to be on the stage and watching the light bulbs go off, and I saw Stephen and Donna in the crowd, and I really could see them be like, whoosh, like as they saw the possibility start to be created for them. And it's so exciting, Stephen, to hear what you've done, to be generating $30,000 more in last year, and really being able to see the money come in on the first of the month so that you can pay your bills without worrying about it. It's so fantastic. And what would you tell people, Stephen, who are, because you and Donna traveled across the country to come to the event, you took 3 days of your lives. Like, what would you say to people who are considering coming to Master Your Money and, maybe they're on the fence, maybe they're wondering whether it's worth getting a plane ticket? What would you say to those people?
Well, it's hard to say to somebody that doesn't know.
Yeah.
We didn't know. We were just highly motivated. We were just, what are we gonna do? And we needed to get away. So, it was the angst that drove us there, because we needed to talk about a plan. We needed to have that plan. And in Monica, that's one of the things that you do beautifully, is that you are really good at helping plan. That is just amazing. So that would be just in and of itself the reason that someone would want to make the move. And then when you start looking at the difference between decisions and just the whole discussion about things, because once you make a decision, then you've got to engage in the activities that are required in order to make that so. And so revenue generating activities, I didn't, I mean, I came from a medical situation. People make a referral and you treat them. And this was different. So, and the other thing is, it gave me more control. Yeah. And I like that, because there's nothing worse than being in a situation where you don't have control over what's going on. And it seems like, the manipulations are happening from afar, and that I don't like at all.
Oh, that's so true. So many people treat it's like magical, like, oh, I got a client, and you don't know where the client came from. Or like, oh, I had a great month, and you're like, I hope I have a great month next month. And if you're constantly running your business that way, not only is it exhausting, but it's hard on the body, right? Because you have these adrenaline rushes around when things go well, and then things drop when they don't. Like, it's a great way to get sick and to continue to continue to struggle. And that's one of the things that I love about Master Your Money is I created it to put the power back in your hands, to give you, we have a 14-step framework that I go over that starts day 1, goes to day 2, goes into day 3. It's a full workshop where I really teach you what the mystery behind money is. So you're no longer hoping and praying and manifesting and hustling and throwing things against the wall, but you're actually knowing what the revenue generating activities are, and you know what order you do them in, you know how often you do them in, and there's just a sense of release when you feel like, oh, okay, I'm in charge here. I'm driving my business forward.
You know, one add-on to that is that the charts that you provide that make it easy for you to track, that's huge. Because if you have to try and make that stuff up yourself, well, which number am I going to use? And gee, should I do this? And should that be before expenses, or, you know, and it just makes it much easier to do. And so don't undervalue the contribution that the charts bring in to people tracking their money and knowing what they're doing and what they're not doing.
Yeah, the charts that Stephen's referring to is part of our content that we give out at Master Your Money. You go to some events and it's like they give you like a plain white notebook to take notes in, or they give you sort of a disparate bunch of handouts, or there's 12 different speakers there and you kind of have to piece it together yourself as to what you're going to do. And it, you know, it breaks my heart when that happens, because I see beginners, you know, spending $8,000 on a Facebook ads program that they're not even ready to do yet. Like, that's just not where you need to jump in. And at Master Your Money, I am very clear that I want you to walk out of that event with a total transformation. Whether you ever do anything with me again is completely up to you, but I want you to be able to use the materials over and over and over again. And so what I provide is a 150-page book. It is a full-on book. It has charts in it. It has all of my frameworks in it. It has, literally, I have people who came to the event 2 years ago and 3 years ago who tell me that the book's still on their desk and they have it sort of earmarked to the pages that they need. And this is really an important aspect. Like, I know for me, when I go to an event, it's a big deal. You know, you're having to get a babysitter, you're having to get an animal sitter, you're having to reschedule your clients for the day, you're spending money on the plane ticket, you're spending money on the hotel, you're sitting in the room for 3 days. Like, it's a big deal, and I really honor that. Like, I honor, and so one thing that I'm really aware of is that my commitment to you at these events is that it is well worth your time, well worth your energy of being here. And I make sure that each year I create an experience where you will walk away with information that you can use immediately after the event for the rest of your business.
That's a fact. You know, that's not just, there's one other thing that I want to point out. It's unusual, but because you got a lot of people in the room. And, you know, you're up on a stage and you're looking down, so you get to see who's paying attention and who's making notes and who's interacting. But you pick up on things, and then you'll come back and gee, I noticed that yada, yada, yada. And those things matter, you know. The fact that you are as observant as you are is really kind of a key thing. So,
awesome.
Yeah, that's huge.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Stephen. And thank you so much for joining us. I am so excited that you're part of everything. I'm so excited about the results, and I will see you at Master Your Money this year. Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you, Monica.
Bye-bye.